Cinderella Man is one of the most exciting movie that I have seen, and I can say one of the inspiring movie. And it talks about the resilience of a man in a tough situation, even though he had success. And it brings out that even if you are down, you can fight back, you can survive, and you can make it to the top if you want to.
That's true. I mean, it was a surprising film to me because watching it after our recent, worldwide crisis that we've all been through, watching the depression and the 1920s and that era, watching people what they did to survive and what sort of changes were happening in people's jobs and things like that. Actually, it was a very timely film to watch for I think a lot of people. But can I ask you actually, Harsh, about Russell Crowe because obviously a very good actor, but why do you think he was good in this particular role? What do you think worked about Russell Crowe, his character, and the topics in this film?
I think that he is a charismatic actor, but he is not above extraordinary like Leonardo DiCaprio or things like not too damn good looking, not like Hugh Jackman with bulk and that. And uh, you can see an average man in him. You can see the character in him, the courage in him, rather than a pretty face. I think that's why people actually relate with him that, oh, I do look like him in some way. I do look like him in some way. My height is same, my face is same, or my behavior is like him. And I think Russell Crowe had did a lot of good movies which talks about this thing, whether it was the gladiator, whether it was the a beautiful mind. He has played very very great characters, but brought them down to the level that anyone can relate to it.
Well, I think a lot of ladies will disagree with you about his pretty face. I think they do watch him for the pretty face,
Yes.
but I know what you mean. I find he has a relatability and, as you say, very diverse roles, but
Hmm.
very believable
Yes.
acting. And I think with this role, I found anyway, from my own point, that he gave a sort of I don't know what the word is, but the topics that were taken on, the poverty, the struggle, rising to the heights and then falling down to the bottom, a dignity. That's the word.
Yes.
Eventually, I remember what I'm saying. He gave a dignity to
Yes.
to the themes in this film,
Yes.
and I thought one of his better films actually. I mean, he's been in so many,
Yes.
but I think one of his better films from my point of view anyway. But
Yes.
talking about the film just in general now, what are some of the main themes that you found that popped out at you that would be helpful for maybe guys, trying to learn a lesson in life, watching the struggles of this film?
I think one of the there's a spoiler alert. There is a scene where his son steals because he thinks that if he doesn't steal the food, he will be sent away. There is a whole story behind it, and he promises his son. He doesn't yell at him. He doesn't beat him. He takes him to the shop, returns the food, and promises him that he will take care of him. But he couldn't. So, in order to bring his kid back, if you watch the movie, you will see that he actually asked for help. And I think that I was watching this a new movie, and it talks about what is the most courageous thing you have done is about asking for help. And I think that this is one thing that men can learn, that because we are not taught to ask for help, we suffer in silence. And also it also teaches our kids that you can lead by example. So when you see that movie, you see that he is a very good father figure, that he takes his responsibility very seriously. He finds fun in things, he wants to pursue what he wants to do, but at the same time he makes sure that he is putting up a good role model. And for me it was the scene that he actually begs for money.
Yes.
And I think that that actually talks about so many fathers that we don't know as kids, that our father have done so many difficult choices, that they might have done so many things that we will never be aware of. No one talks about it. So I think the help that they have asked for your kid. So I think that there's some of the things that men can learn from it.
Now, at this point, we probably should explain for anyone who hasn't seen the film that it's actually about, I think it's about a world champion boxer, isn't it? Who, at the time of the Depression, actually fell from grace, like a lot of people,
Yes,
lost work, lost money,
yes,
was almost left on the street, living in very poor conditions. So we're
yes,
talking about a very amazing story.
yes.
What was the main
He
character based on? What was his
So
name?
he was a very James J. Braddock. So he was one of the title contender at that time. He was winning very good fights. He was earning good money. He had a good house. His wife was happy. He had kids, and it was all going good. And the Great Depression in U.S. happened, and they lost everything. People were having difficulty to pay for gas, electricity, for milk. There is a very good scene about it, that the how much the shortage was, that he was sharing his breakfast with his daughter. So, and it shows that even though he from success to he went to completely downtrodden, he kept fighting on. He kept his head down, and he kept doing what he needs to do as a man, as a father, and as a human being, surviving. He took the help from the government, and when he started fighting back, he got these fights, and he has a very wonderful manager that some people do trust on us more than we trust ourselves. So he fights back, and when he starts earning money back, he starts paying back to the government, because he says that we live in a country where I was held by the nation when I needed it, so it's my like moral duty. And I think it talks about a very poignant thing, that civil rights come with civil responsibility. So he's this story is all about how a man can go from good to bad and still crawl his way back up, fighting because of his resilience, his patience, his courage. So I think that's the story that is
Yeah,
about.
yeah. I like that scene actually when he took the money back into the dole queue or the social services and dumped it on the counter and gave it back to the government. I wonder how many people would be able to do that.
Yes,
But as you say, like he was a role model to. He was in an unusual position because
yes,
they showed the role model within the family,
yes,
husband, father, and
yes,
then they showed the role model to society because at
yes,
that time, in a depression, you can
yes,
imagine in a
yes,
depression or a war or something like that, watching someone fight back is
yes,
extremely inspiring.
yes,
And in fact, he did. It's a true story based on
yes,
a true person,
yes,
sorry. But he did, in fact, inspire a
yes.
generation. So it's a fantastic story, a true story.
Yes, and the scene that is depicted in the movie, that he walks in the ring, the Madison Square Garden, and instead of everyone yelling at his name, they felt silent, and that is one of the most powerful scene that you will actually have goosebump, because it's easy to get people excited. To get them silenced is even difficult.
Yes.
So it's very beautiful scene, and I think that what you just said, that how people give back to this, how many people will do it. And in recent pandemic, we have seen that even though we were scared, and we were scared of everything, the world kept moving on. That means someone was doing something. We were getting things, but we don't know who was delivering it. So it's the backbone of the society are people like these, who we don't know,
Yes.
but they inspire through their work. So I think that's the beautiful thing about Cinderella Man.
Well, there were a lot of things in this film. It wasn't just about him, it was about his wife
Yes,
and also the children and how they had to cope as well,
yes,
and how he tried to keep the unit
yes,
going there. I think as a role model, I say for men because men traditionally have been providers and
yes,
that's been their role. Of
yes,
course, anyone can provide, but traditionally men had the pressure,
yes,
if not the ability, to
yes,
be the provider. So
yes,
I think watching the struggle, as you say,
yes,
on what that actually entails.
yes,
That's not just going to work and then you
yes,
come home. That
yes,
actually entails the struggle. I think he worked at the dockyards, didn't he?
yes,
When he
yes,
had a broken hand.
yes,
Can you talk about that
yes.
scene? Yeah.
So he has a fracture in his hand because he was fighting with a broken hand, and he broke it. So he had to go to the dockyard, and he polishes his plaster so that no one can see it that is broken. And he works in the dockyard, but because he's now winning few fights, he's getting easy work. But at the same time, his friend is actually helping him cover that his hand is broken, and he's pulling the weight for him. And I think that this is a very telling sign about society also. Men actually help men. And you're right about the it's about his wife also, that it can be a very good way to express that, even that she's a housewife, but doesn't mean that she's not contributing, because it shows that it looks like Russell Crowe is doing the heavy lifting, but she is the one who is ready to make hard choices. She's the one, he actually says that I want you by my side, because he can't do it. Sometimes even the fighter needs someone to take care of him. And she is the one who is afraid for him. Someone has to do that role also. She is the one who is with him in his worst. You can have the best people around you when you're winning. Look when who's on your corner when you are losing. And she is the symbol that if you have just one person in your life that is with you in your worst time, that's it. All you need is one person. So Renee Zellweger did a very brilliant role. She did the great role of being a mother also. That she took the hard call of sending her kids because it was about their survival.
What happened? She sent them. What happened?
So they couldn't pay for the gas and electricity. So her kids started getting ill, and they are having pneumonia. So she sent them to her sister. And I told that he promised his son that he will never send him away. So he got angry that why did you send them? Because I promised them. But she's saying that they were getting ill. That's where the mother comes in, that okay, your promise is there, but there is a life at danger.
Yes, there's practicalities.
There's the practicality.
Yes.
So she did the hard call. And sometimes we do need people in our life who can look at the perspective and can make a hard call. Sometimes for us it's not ideal, but sometimes we do need someone to tell us that what needs to be done.
That's a very good point. And it was hard to watch because that was what was keeping him going, to make sure the kids didn't leave the family unit. But sickness was there in the background for a lot of people, obviously in the depression, and that was practical to send the kids away, and it was pretty heartbreaking. And you can imagine families having to do that.
Yes.
But can I ask you about boxing? Because I know a lot of popular films have boxing as the theme. Considering boxing, I mean, it is a popular sport, but it's probably not the most popular sport. Yet it seems to come up in a lot of films as a metaphor maybe for fighters.
Yes.
Not literal fighters, but fighting in life. So struggling and fighting. So can you talk about how boxing in Cinderella Man, how that was used as sort of the metaphor for the fight and the depression? I mean, it was literally a boxer, but in this case, it was a little bit of a metaphor for the struggle, the fight.
Yes.
And I think, as you've said before, your existence is your example.
Yes.
And I think the Russell Crowe character, what his existence was the example, and they showed that through boxing. Can you talk about that element, the boxing part of this film?
I think you are right about when you say it's the metaphor, that people wanted to get inspired at that time. They were already losing in life. So they wanted someone to beat the odds. And maybe that's why people were gravitated towards him, that he was beating the odds. He was not the popular fighter. He was a bit older, and other fighters were much stronger. And he was fighting back, and people could relate to him. And sometimes you do want physical punching back. It's not you this in your mind you can think about it, but sometimes you do root for someone who's actually doing it. There's something about thinking I will fight back, and something about fighting back.
So watching the fighting is almost like a release for you for your own fight, which is not physical, but watching someone physically fight back, representing your struggle.
Yes, and most of these movies, whether it's Rocky, the next new version, the Creed also, it's always pitted against that the person who is the underdog. If the underdog fights back and wins, it gives a sort of inspiration or a relief to people that even they can do it. And that's why he became the Cinderella Man, that people were rooting for him, not just his wife or everyone wanted him to succeed, even though she was afraid. When she went to the church, she wanted to pray for him, and the father says to her that join in, because all the other people are praying for him, because now he is the symbol for them, that please beat the odds because we are trying to do the same. So I think that is very what you have said, that it's metaphorical, brought to the actual reality of fighting back.
And I think boxing, for those of us who, like me, who don't necessarily know a lot about boxing, but it's the brutality of boxing is shown here, just for
Hmm.
people who want to know a little bit about boxing. The realities, the
Hmm.
injuries. I think
Yes.
that's one of the main things that really caused him to go into poverty was the injury.
Hmm.
And I guess a lot of sports people lose their
Yes.
careers over injury. So can you
Hmm.
talk a bit about how the injury and the brutality of the sport
Yes.
actually was shown? I think he had a hand injury.
Yes, from the hand injury and to his the people he was fighting, who they were much stronger. And there is this scene where there is a guy named Lasky, and he takes his best shot and hits him very hard. And it's shown that he sees all his kids without. He's just thinking that no, I can't lose, and he just picks up his mouth guard and gets up. So I think that this is what boxing has been about, that it transcends from physical to mind. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of boxers have said that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you if you There's a famous interview of Muhammad Ali, that how many sit-ups or something you do. He said that I start counting when it starts hurting.
Yeah.
It's the mindset. And you are right that the injuries does cause a lot of people to go down. And it actually shows that he had a mortal danger, because the fighter he was fighting for the heavyweight title was actually one who has killed someone on in a boxing ring. And he does come to actually hit him in the head during the movie. So it's like, it's just facing your own mortality at that time. You can talk about, people talk about that I almost died metaphorically, but actually facing, going to the ring is like going to get killed actually, and not getting killed. So in that vein is that, yeah, boxing is very close to what life is about. It's not talk, is actually what you have to deal with.
Yes, people live on the edge. And
Yes.
I guess he had practice in gladiator fighting, so he was okay with that. But yeah, that's a good point, actually. I think actually a lot of sports and a lot of things you do in life, you're not openly and actively heading into something
Yes.
that is very dangerous at that time. So,
Yes.
what psychology does that take to actually face that? But that was what people were facing in the community at that time.
Yes.
It wasn't like everything was going hunky dory.
Mhm.
People were facing death in their everyday life.
Yes.
So, he went into the ring against the world champions, and he
Mhm.
was facing, injury and death and things that you do face in boxing, but
Mhm.
actually the ordinary people were facing that. So
Yes.
who would you recommend, who do you think would enjoy this film if they haven't seen Cinderella Man?
I think if you are struggling in your life, but you think you can make it, and you are all alone, I think that one should watch this movie, not just for motivation but for inspiration. Motivation can go down, inspiration remains with you, so that it can remind you every day, that think about it, that okay, I have to go back again, go back again, go back again, even though it's not working. It might take 1 year, 2 year, 5 years maybe. But I think that if you are all alone, and if you don't have any support, then you can find a bit of inspiration from this movie, that just keep going on. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was surprised by this film. I didn't see it when it originally came out, although I hardly see any films when they originally come out. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think
Yes.
performance-wise, it was excellent, but actually the messages were really good. I think it's
Yes.
definitely worth a watching. But thanks for that, Hush.
Thank you.
Please join us at menPsyche.com for more conversations, questions, and answers. We hope to see you there.